Hello, this is Michael Eure, and I'd like to invite you to the Michael Eure Show, featuring student hosts and very special guests talking about a variety of interesting topics. You can find us on the Eagle Stream YouTube channel.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the Michael Eure Show, and we have such a great lineup of special guests today. Right now, what I'm going to do is give everybody an opportunity to briefly introduce themselves. And before they start, I do want to say Taj Hewitt will be the student co-host, and he is a great young man. He was a student I coached in the fall of 2021, and he'll be graduating soon, and he'll tell you more. But Taj is also a Scott Scholar, and he is a member of the Student Senate. So I'm going to let Taj take it over and each person briefly introduce yourselves. Thank you.
Yeah, so I will be your co-host for today. And as Mr. Eure said, I am current student at Wake Tech, just doing my, studently duties. And I just want to say that everyone can go ahead and start introducing themselves. So Marcus Flores, if you'll get us off.
Hi, everyone. I'm Marcus Flores. I'm the curator of Community and Social History at the North Carolina Museum of History in downtown Raleigh.
Ben?
Hello, everyone. My name is Benjamin Saucedo. I am a Wake Tech alum. I actually spent very nice time there, and I'm currently pursuing my bachelor's degree in mathematics at Campbell University.
And Hermione?
Hi, my name is Hermione Moul. I am a freshman at Wake Tech, and I am also a member of our Spanish Honor Society.
And then Sergeant Marcus Bethea.
Hello, everyone. Sergeant Marcus Bethea of the North Carolina Highway Patrol. I'm based here in Raleigh at our headquarters in downtown Raleigh with our Public Information Office, and I also work part-time with Wake Tech's Basic Law Enforcement Training Program as a classroom and fitness instructor.
Excellent. And so to get us on the way, I'd like to say that Hermione is actually a member of the Sigma Delta Mu at Wake Tech, which is a Spanish Honor Society. And in honor of Hispanic Heritage Month, I just want to ask you, Hermione, could you tell us a little bit about the events that Sigma Delta Mu is doing this month?
Yeah, so for Hispanic Heritage Month, Sigma Delta Mu is hosting a Day of the Dead celebration at the South Campus on October 31st, where we will have traditional treats, school painting, and opportunities to learn more about the culture.
Excellent. And I'm sure that will be a very, very important activity for Wake Tech and for Sigma Delta Mu. And I just want to say thank you, Hermione. And right after that, we are going to go into a slideshow, which is just a cultural video segment.
And if you want to comment on it about this is events that were done by the Spanish Honor Society in the past. If you want to talk about it, you may while the slide goes.
So these are just a few events that Sigma Delta Mu has actually conducted in the past. And as you can see, they like to involve students in their activities and really get people from not only Latinx communities, but every culture together to collaborate and create something that can inspire others to keep that cultural link strong.
Okay. Well, I think that this is great. And the event is going to be on October 31st on the Southern Wake campus. Is that correct? Okay. And the public is invited? Or is it just
everyone is invited.
Okay, thank you. So I think we have some people backstage, and one of our guests is going to leave, and one of her fellow students is going to come and talk a little bit more. Hermione?
Thank you, Hermione.
Okay. Hey, hello, Jenny. How are you?
Hi, everyone. I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Good.
How are you, Michael?
I'm good. Do you want to introduce yourself first? And then we're going to have you talk a little bit about DEI.
Yeah, of course. So my name is Jenny Aguilera, and I'm currently involved in student government along with the DEI Council in student government. I am Senate Chair for the Northern Campus. And so I'll lead my Senate in different meetings. And then with DEI, the council is to promote diversity, equity, and inclusion because these are the heart of our mission to serve our community on campus, and all who come to our campus. The DEI Council comprises a cross-section of faculty, staff, students, and administrators who are committed to leading the work of DEI for college. And then we also have work centers that kind of touch on our 5 priorities, which is student success, campus climate, education and training, workforce initiatives, and communication. So we are pretty rounded, and we want to make sure that everyone can enjoy being a member of Wake Tech to whatever capacity they are.
All right. And we got a little bit out of sequence, so I do want to ask Jerry to play the Care Center video. And also, all of these videos that you see in slideshows are going to be put in the chat for the audience to retrieve later. So can you do that, Jerry?
The Care Center is here to provide wraparound services for our students for when out-of-the-classroom challenges arise. I'm Mike Coleman, Dean of Student Engagement and Impact here at Wake Tech.
My name is Magdalene Christ, and I'm a student at Wake Tech in the Associate of Science program. The Care Center at Wake Tech has been a great hub for resources
such as food, success coaching, technology support, brief mental health counseling, emergency financial assistance, and transportation assistance.
I've gotten a lot of great help with questions and just navigating Wake Tech. If I'm ever having a tough day or a tough time in class, the student success coaches are always there to help me whenever I need it.
Students can connect with us by visiting one of our locations, online at our website, or by email.
So to my fellow students, if you ever need help with anything, the Care Center is your one-stop shop, and I highly recommend.
And most importantly, we are here to support our students and make sure that they soar.
Thank you, Jerry. And as a student success coach, that is the department I'm a part of. So we certainly want to make sure you know. And for students, if you need anything, check us out. We do success coaching by majors. All brand new students have success coaches. And now I'm going to turn it back over to Jerry.
So by Jerry, I think he means me. And so
it's a transition period. Yeah, Jerry used to do what you do. Yes, Jerry's doing something different. I mean, Taj.
So right now I want to get into Ben's journey, because Ben actually worked on a START project with myself, and it was about the 2020 census in the Latinx community. And so Ben, I just want to ask you, can you tell us a little bit about your experiences from your younger and coming to Wake Tech, and how it prepared you for your current journey?
Yeah, so I'm actually not from North Carolina. I'm born and raised in Los Angeles, more specifically the San Fernando Valley. And in the San Fernando Valley, the Latinx population is actually 52%. So I was surrounded by a lot of other Latinos and Hispanics. I was also, it was just very common to hear people speaking Spanish in public, and just like, playing Spanish music and engaging with different foods and all that stuff, the cultural mixes with the different Latin American countries. So honestly, just being surrounded in an environment like that really allowed me to just grow with confidence, not having to fear or, just kind of feel like I'm outnumbered, like in like school or something like that. Like it was very common to just be surrounded a lot by other Hispanics and Latinos. So that really kind of built up the confidence that I have now to this day, to just really kind of dive head into whatever challenge I face, whether it's academically or professionally. And that kind of just like what I was saying, that just kind of really encouraged me to continue motivate me to get my higher education, because part of my START research that I conducted was just seeing the different, the lack of education really in the Latinx community, not only in the U.S. but in North Carolina. So that just kind of is keeping me from going forward. Really, it's keeping me moving on.
Excellent. And Ben, would you say that these experiences have helped you grow as a person, especially in the society that we live in today?
I would say it definitely has, just mainly because I've been able to go through different experiences as other people. So that's helped me become a very resilient person. I'm able to really learn to adapt to different environments, no matter how drastic the change is. So I would say that it really helped me build um, just that, I guess, grit that I need to just keep moving, keep fighting, even when things get tough.
That's excellent. And now I'm going to go over to Mr. Marcus Flores, who is as he said, a curator at the NC Museum of History. And he actually has a master's degree in Spanish and he has experience in teaching Spanish courses. So I just want to ask you, Mr. Flores, what do you think about Hispanic Heritage Month on a whole?
What I think about it as a whole, I think it's a great thing to get the exposure that this minority community needs, because sometimes we're not represented in a lot of these spaces, especially working at the Museum of History here in North Carolina. Latinos aren't really represented as much as we should be, because we are a growing community here. Like Ben, I'm from New Mexico. Obviously, it's different from California, but I'm from New Mexico, where the majority is Hispanic or Latinos. So it was a different change from here. But I think it's important that we have this month, and especially to celebrate it here in North Carolina, to give exposure to our community.
That's great. That's great. And just wanted to come back to you, Ben. And as I've said before, Ben and I actually worked on a project for the START program, and it was about the 2020 census in the Latinx community. So, Ben, could you just elaborate and explain on the data that you gathered and how that really changed your perspective on the current state of the Latinx community?
Yeah, absolutely. So Taj and I ended up making two posters because we were comparing, I want to say quality of life, because we were looking at education, poverty status, income, occupation, and the changes of that within the Latinx community from 2010 to 2020. And then the second poster that we worked on was, we decided to focus specifically on educational change within the Latinx community in North Carolina. And a lot of that data was honestly very surprising, a little bit startling, if I'm being honest, simply because a lot of the education levels, they either remain the same within lower categories. For example, one of the data points that we found was Latinx in Mecklenburg County. There's been an increase of Latinx who have less than a ninth grade education. And then, like, for example, in Winston-Salem, there's been about a stagnant amount of high school dropouts. So that data, it just really, like I said earlier, it really motivates me to keep going and keep, just keep striving for academic excellence. And it really makes me want to continue pursuing education as far as I can, really.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. And like I said, that was a wonderful project that Ben and I worked on. But he was the main, fuel behind that project. So, anyways, right now we are going to go into a commercial break and play a short video from Career Services. So sit back and enjoy. Jerry?
I think Jerry is back looking for some stuff, but if he is not ready, we can continue with some more questions.
Yeah, of course, because I have plenty. So I can go over to Sergeant Marcus Bethea, who is a part of the NC Highway Patrol, and his mom is actually Puerto Rican. Is that correct?
Yes. So very interesting background on my part. So my mother is Puerto Rican on her mother's side and Mexican on her father's side. And my father is African American and born and raised in North Carolina.
Hmm. Excellent. So I'm sure you have a lot of knowledge on the Latinx community, and you've probably grown up in a culture of Latinx experiences. So a question that I want to ask you, working with the NC Highway Patrol, can you explain about the Basic Law Enforcement Training Academy?
Sure. So as far as basic law enforcement training, at Wake Tech, of course, they offer a very prestigious program, very well known throughout the state. They offer both a full-time, what we call a day class, where it's basically a semester of school where students can come take a full-time coursework and get their certification. They also offer a night part-time course, to where students come at night. They'll stay in class for roughly 4 to 5 hours. And this is a much more lengthier program, but it allows them to do it on a part-time basis in the evenings and ultimately get their certification that way. So I've been a part of this program with Wake Tech as an instructor since 2018. And I've had a very pleasant, very positive experience. I've enjoyed training students and passing along that knowledge and wisdom. And I'm very proud when I see these guys out here doing the job, wearing the uniform, and seeing them live their dreams as I once did when I was in their shoes.
Excellent. And that was an important question I wanted to ask, because not only did you give us your job description and exactly what you do, but another thing that I want to know is how exactly has growing up in a Latinx household, and how has those experiences helped you and shaped you, or even made you decide to want to go into that field?
My experience is once again, it's a very different kind of experience that I had. Much different from Marcus, much different from Ben, but at the same time, there is a connection there. I was born in Arizona, so I too come from the Southwest United States, which is a very highly populated, especially Mexican influenced part of the country.
Yeah.
I came to North Carolina from El Paso, Texas, which once again is a border city. Spanish is widely spoken, so it was always there. And as a small child, identity and culture just wasn't really emphasized a lot in my home. So these were, the influences were there, but a lot of it wasn't directly talked about. And I touched on this with Michael in a previous discussion we had. I had, the grits and the collard greens with breakfast and dinner at home, but then it was the enchiladas and it was the rice and it was, the tostadas and all these things. And it was just food. There was no component attached to it. But the older I got, the more this identity kind of became visible, and it became something that I explored. And once I came to North Carolina in my middle and high school years, I started to realize this part of me a lot more because people asked about it. I arrived in North Carolina prior to the big boom in the migrant population. So I arrived here and I saw black and white. This is a day and age where brown is everywhere. And I was here at the start of it, and to see it grow and flourish, and to see, the Ben Saucedos of the world that are now grown up and now becoming the entrepreneurs, becoming the police officers, becoming the bankers, becoming tech gurus. It's amazing just to see that growth in North Carolina alone.
Well, it's an excellent story, and I can see exactly why you chose to join the law enforcement. You seem like a very resilient man and a very hardworking man. But I want to actually pose the same question to Marcus Flores. What Latinx experiences made you want to go into the field of history? And I know you even published a book. Is that correct?
Yep. Well, growing up with it, my family's been in New Mexico for 400 years, I'd say, and that's what I grew up with. Just hearing Spanish. I didn't speak Spanish, but I heard it around me. I understood it, and then I went to school for it, and I still have a hard time speaking it at times. But that is something that has really pushed me, is knowing my history, because I do genealogy as well. That's the book I published on my family. So knowing the history of my family and the culture that I come from and just the traditions, that kind of thing has pushed me to go into the careers that I've gone into. And moving to North Carolina, that was one of the things I looked for in a job, is something that will allow me to help minority communities like mine get more of a voice in places like North Carolina or the Museum of History. So it kind of moved throughout the years, and it's pretty awesome that I'm able to do what I'm doing in a place that it's not as common.
And I just wanted to ask, is there anything in specific that the Museum of History is doing for Hispanic Heritage Month?
Unfortunately, there's not. Last year we had one case that we brought out a lot of the artifacts that we do have, the little bit of artifacts that we do have, and we showcased them. But this year we didn't have a chance to actually do that with other projects that we have. But hopefully in the future I could start doing that, with bringing in more objects to the collection, which will help to build that, to build more exhibits and to build a rapport with the community.
And I just am going to break in, because I talked to Marcus a little bit earlier about the relationship between the indigenous people in North America, South America, and the island, and how the Spanish came and kind of conquered them and made them all speak Spanish. But that I would like to connect that the indigenous people and the American Indians, and the Museum of History does have an American Indian cultural festival in the month of November, which I think would be very well. I think it's always well attended. They expect 14,000 people. I know it's on the same day as Raleigh Christmas Parade. Can you talk a little bit about that relationship between those populations?
I'm not sure what you like
about the indigenous people in different, like in Venezuela versus Puerto Rico versus Dominican Republic versus other places that speak Spanish, but Spanish is the language that binds them, but also their history as being indigenous people.
Yeah, that's the heart. Like you're saying, Spanish is the one that connects everybody, and I could just speak to where I'm from, because there is pueblos in New Mexico. Even Arizona, I lived in Arizona for 5 years, that they have their reservations, and they still keep their traditions and their history there. But they do have that common language of Spanish or English today, right? And the traditions of the conquistadores that came through. But we're all a mix. I think we can say we're all a mix of indigenous and African American as well, or African, I should say. So I think that's an important thing that we should all take into account. And if you see the studies that are being done today, that's being brought out a lot more, and the indigenous and the African side of the Latino culture is actually being highlighted and connected to in a different way than it was before. So it's really an important time.
Thank you. And Taj, I'm going to leave for a minute, and we're going to bring Ben in, and we're going to do a little break. So Jerry, do your thing, and when you come back, I'll be gone, but I'll be back towards the end. Go ahead.
All right, so he meant to say we're going to bring Bryan in. So welcome, Bryan. If you could just introduce yourself briefly.
Hi, everyone. My name is Bryan. So I'm I would say that I'm a first year at Wake Tech, but I'm planning on finishing my associates this year as well. So kind of doing everything in 1 year. And I'm planning on transferring to UNC Chapel Hill. And I am Latino. I'm from Mexico, and I'm also indigenous, ironically, from the conversation we were just on. I'm from the Quatrachil tribe of northeastern Mexico, which is also part of the Shishimekan Nation. And yeah, that's a bit about me.
And speaking about, you know, these tribes and the different cultures, and Marcus Flores spoke about how all these countries are linked by the language of Spanish. I just want to ask, and this question is to anyone, can feel free to answer, but has there been any country or state or whatever it might be, place that you visited that really gave you a different perspective on the Latinx community? Jenny, I think you may.
I'm not from here. I'm from Dallas, Texas, and I grew up in a Latina community. So coming here, it was really different to see how much smaller the areas are. And I know in comparison, North Carolina to Texas still geographically is very different. But I did notice that it was a lot more subtle, and it was a lot more quiet, and it was harder to find, community organizations that were focused on Latinos and Latina folk. So I think it's an interesting contrast. I think it's definitely something that I'm still getting used to. And, there are places that I do feel more comfortable interacting with older folks in the way that I would back home in Texas, because I grew up around, folks who knew my grandma, and they just knew her, and they knew that I was her grandkid. And so they treated me like family, and even though they were shop owners and stuff. So it's definitely different. But I can say that my experiences at Wake Tech have been pretty good at wanting to be diverse and wanting to include Latinx folk and all, also non-white folk in the community, and trying to have a real understanding of what those communities need. And also with my job, it's been great being able to be a part of the community. I did an event at the Mexican consulate, which was amazing. And it's so great to find little festivals and culturally significant festivals at that in the area. The turnout might be huge, but it's so wonderful to see, to see families and grandparents and folks and stuff, how it doesn't really matter where we are, but, those dynamics are still kind of there.
Definitely. Okay, so now we will be going to a small commercial break. We'll be playing a slideshow for you. So sit back and enjoy. Jerry. Okay, so I guess we won't again, but that's okay because we have so much to talk about and so many lovely people to share. So what I want to ask now is, Bryan, being a member of the indigenous community, being, from Mexico, I want to ask you, how important do you think Hispanic Heritage Month is, for people who might not know about the culture, or people who think they know about the culture but might have misconceptions?
I think it's a great time to re-clarify a lot of misconceptions around the Latino community. I know in my high school, we would do a lot of presentations and stuff on different aspects of the Latin American countries and the diaspora here in the United States. And a lot of people would come up to us after that, and they would be like, wow, I actually never knew about that. So it is actually like really interesting to see how much people can learn from everything that can come from all of the like heritage months and embracing different cultures. So it's definitely exciting in that aspect. And it's also nice to uplift people who maybe might not have the opportunity to speak on certain things that are passionate that they're passionate about. Sorry. Like for example, my school let a lot of different members of the Mexican community, since my school was predominantly Mexican. They were able to do like guest speaking, they were able to do dances, sing, and it was just generally like a really fun time. And I think that's like the main thing to highlight, is that like Hispanic Heritage Month is supposed to also be a lot of fun and just like enjoying yourself and getting immersed in something that you might have not known about before.
Excellent. So overall, you'd say that Hispanic Heritage Month is a beneficial celebration for the community.
Definitely, yes.
Okay. All right. So now I want to ask Sergeant Marcus Bethea, working in law enforcement, is there any stereotypes or any, bad news that people think law enforcement might have against Latinx members?
That's a very, very interesting question. And I would base a lot of that on my own experiences. So, I lived in the Southwest United States. And once again, being in El Paso, Texas, and I'm sure Jenny could relate coming from the Dallas area, it's nothing to see Hispanic or Latino police officers. They're everywhere. When I came here, it was virtually non-existent. And just to kind of reflect my age, I started my law enforcement career in 2002 as a Raleigh police officer. And there were many times, where I was the only Spanish-speaking officer in the entire city. There were times when I would respond to calls in communities that were predominantly Spanish-speaking. And when I would speak the language, people would stop in their tracks because they just had never seen somebody with a uniform and a badge speaking the language. So it was a very big growth process. I think there was a lot of intimidation with the police, a lot of, once again, not necessarily accurate. I think a lot of it was just lack of knowledge, lack of understanding of what the police department's values were. So there was a barrier. There was a gap, and it was just as difficult for other police officers because they didn't know the language. They didn't know the customs. And so there was a disconnect. And I think that in itself gets kind of blown into this idea that there's a misrepresentation between being able to connect police with the community to the police. So that was an ever growing part and component of community policing that needed to be worked on, needed to be adjusted. It needed training, it needed development, and it's still a continuing process. In law enforcement training, you'll find in academies throughout the state, they will actually have Spanish seminars, crash courses on the Spanish language to help these young police recruits communicate with our communities out there. I know it doesn't necessarily provide all the knowledge that they need, but every little bit helps. So it is a growth process. My experiences has been very good in the profession. Moving on to the highway patrol and becoming a state trooper, same thing. I've had my experiences to where the language has gotten me by, and I've been able to help someone successfully, whereas the next officer or trooper doesn't have that advantage. Yeah. So it is a learning process. It's still developing, but I think the strides that are being made are very positive ones. And I would certainly hope that other members of our Latino community are seeing those efforts.
Yeah, definitely. And we have some questions in chat directed at you, Sergeant. And the first one is from JS, and she actually asks, I think you may have answered the majority of this question already, but she asks, what stereotypes have you encountered, and how can we support and promote change?
Okay, stereotypes as far as toward the police, I'd say common stereotypes are the immigration debate. Immigration is a federal issue. In my career, I have worked in city law enforcement as well as state law enforcement. We do not enforce immigration laws. But of course, someone new to this country, especially someone who might have come from a different place and is now here, we're all one and the same in their eyes. So oftentimes, especially in the early stages of my career, people would run from us. People would fight us. Hispanic people would, for otherwise very minor things that they were stopped for, because of this idea that if the police get me, they're going to send me back. When in reality, we have no part in that. We have absolutely no part in that. But of course, they don't know any better. So once again, that added to the disconnect. We'd stop a car for something as simple as an expired license plate. Next thing you know, the person is running from us. We're chasing them down. We have to apprehend them. It might result in an altercation. Now someone's going to jail over what would have been a traffic citation. And there was a lot of that happening in the early to mid 2000s because of the immigration issues and the misconceptions that were circulating. So that was a big stereotype. We as North Carolina state troopers are not enforcers of immigration laws. Your local city police officers and county sheriff's deputies are not enforcers of immigration laws. That is a federal matter. And there are situations within the legal system where it can turn into that direction through the legal process. But as far as us, boots on the ground, law enforcement officers, that is the farthest concern of ours. We're here to help you, whether it be somebody damaged your property, whether it be somebody stole something from you, or whether it be you were involved in a car collision and one of our troopers responds. We are there to help you more than anything else. Anything else beyond that is something we're not concerned with.
Yeah. So I think that answered Jay's question very insightfully. And hopefully now I think the commercial break is ready and we can transition smoothly. So Jerry. Okay, well, a recurring theme, technical difficulties, but, you know, we move. So I'd like to go into another question from the chat. So we have a question from Garla Glover Smith, and she asks, are there any books that highlight Hispanic culture that any of you guys have enjoyed? Can you recommend some? So I know Jenny, you're an average reader, so...
Yeah, it's not necessarily, it's more of a learning book. That's just what I like reading. But it's called Manifest Destinies, The Making of the Mexican American Race by Laura E. Gomez. And it's basically just kind of like a historical background of the original Mexican American people around the 1840s, and then kind of into the Mexican-American War. But it does highlight how, the American government kind of forces Latina folk to, pick one way or the other, at the same time not giving them a choice of, how to identify and how to exist. Especially when, indigenous folk went through so much prior, with colonization and all of that. And then there's another book that's pretty good, and it's called Harvest of Empire, A History of Latinos in America, by Juan Gonzalez. And it's just kind of a memoir-esque type book. With, family portraits of real life immigrant Latinos. And then it tells about some of their accounts of coming from their home countries to the side of the border. So they are kind of heavier reads, not, the funnest or lighthearted, but they are good. And I do recommend a lot of the children's books at Barnes & Noble that are in Spanish. Like, they really are just beautiful. And they, remember to include Black and Indigenous folks when talking about Latine people, because they, the media definitely portrays Latinos as, white-skinned and green-eyed with telenovelas and all of that. And that's just not the case for how, many Latinos look and how many Indigenous, folk look and how people from the islands look like. So I do think that those are good and great to share with kiddos. Very, classroom friendly too.
Excellent. So, Garla Glover Smith, I hope that answered your question. And if you'd like, we can display some of the books in the chat later. But right now, we're going to ask another question from chat from Laura Bethea, actually. And she says, in what ways are your agencies/organizations addressing equity in recruitment, hiring, and retention of Latinx professionals? What needs still exist? So I think this question is directed towards Sargent.
All right. Once again, this is it's been an evolution in law enforcement and recruitment. And looking back on my career over the last 18 years, I've done everything from sitting in the seminars where we're doing the crash course in Spanish phrases and trying to get some verbal knowledge to our officers, everything on up to now openly attending Hispanic and Latino festivals and events and setting up a recruitment table. And I myself have done that and participated in these events on behalf of the Department of Public Safety and the State Highway Patrol to let people know, hey, we're here, we're hiring, there is space for you, the door is wide open. I think generationally, what we're seeing here, and I kind of touched on this earlier, is 20 years ago in North Carolina in particular, the Hispanic population boom was kind of just beginning and very quickly hit a peak. And a lot of people here were not English speaking. A lot of people here may not have been U.S. citizens, which is a requirement for law enforcement. To be a police officer, you have to be a U.S. citizen, whereas to join the military, you don't. Fun fact. Fast forward, a lot of these children that were born in those days, the late 90s, the early to mid 90s, are now adults. They're now of age to get into law enforcement. They are fluent English speakers. They are United States citizens. They are familiar with the government system. They are familiar with the judicial system. They are much better educated than maybe their predecessors were. So it's a different element, a different extension of their families. And this is the group that is coming into the profession. So that in itself is added to the evolution. So we're seeing, in terms of where in the past we used to, very blatantly reach out and say, we need you. We're starting to see a bit more of the outside coming to us saying, hey, here I am. I want to join too. And that's one of the most impressive things that I've seen in my career at this point, is to see the Latino youth come to the BLET program at Wake Tech. And they've told me face to face, I want to help my community. That is why I'm here. And I want more and others to come on board to help in this venture. So it's just a very interesting turning point that we're at. Recruiting and retention is still a priority. We want our agencies to reflect the communities that we serve. And so we are doing our part to attend the events, to get the word out, to spread knowledge, awareness, and education. But, let's be real and let's be honest. To get into a profession like this, you have to want it. You have to have the passion for it. You have to have the calling for it. This is a profession where you could lose your life. It is real. It is dangerous. And not everyone wants to step forward and do it, rightfully so. So it's a fine give and take. But I'm very impressed so far at the changes and the progression that I've seen. And I expect it to get better. I expect my colleagues and coworkers to do their part and all of us to do our part to grow this continually. So I think we're in a good place, and I think moving forward, it's going to get better.
Wow, well said. Well said. And I'm sure it's excellent that we have a representative of law enforcement, because that gives an added layer to what we need to really improve the community. So the video should be ready now. Fourth time the charm, hopefully.
We can help you land the job you want and jumpstart your career. Here are 5 foolproof tips to help you get ready for your future. Tip number 1, get your resume in shape. Wake Tech's career specialist can help you make sure your resume is polished, professional, and up to date. Tip number 2, practice your elevator speech. What's that? It's you, the Wikipedia version, that highlights your skills and experience and leaves potential employers wanting to know more. Tip number 3, prepare for your interview. Research the company and come up with relevant questions to show you're interested and that you've done your homework. Tip number 4, attend a career fair. Take advantage of a wide net of employers and the opportunity to showcase your strengths. Tip number 5, wear professional, job-appropriate attire and present your best self. Remember to smile, shake hands firmly, and speak clearly. Get the latest info and more tips like these at careers.waketech.edu. Discover your future.
Hey, so thank you to Career Services for providing that video. It was very insightful for any student that needs help in choosing their career path. So we'll continue the show, and we're going to go for about 5 more minutes just to get in a bit more information and answer the remaining questions that are in the comments. So we have a question from Valentin Hernandez, and I think it's a very good question, and he asks, any advice to adapt to the US as a Latino? He said he's been living here for a year and he's been struggling with that. So I think, Bryan, it would be very appropriate if you could answer that. Being directly from Mexico, you have experience, coming to the US. So what advice do you have for Valentin?
Yeah, so what I've come to realize is that there's like Mexicans just about everywhere in the United States. So when I briefly attended Cornell, and I lived in Ithaca for like a few months, and I managed to find a community there. So it's really about just finding like those small like restaurants or stores or like even like clubs or places to just socialize that have Latino communities. And it can be hard, but there might be like maybe like platforms on like social media. Like there might be Facebook groups in your local area. You could definitely seek out like taquerias. That's a great place. I don't know if you're from North Carolina, but I know when my father moved to North Carolina as well, like he struggled a lot, but our town, Anger, is very, very Mexican. There's lots of different places you can go to seek that sense of community and that sense of like being back at home. So I definitely recommend like going to like Mexican markets or trying to find like restaurants to regularly visit and like make some friends. I made some friends that way. So it's definitely helpful to seek out some of those places. And if there aren't any, there's always online spaces that you can interact with, and just like calling family a lot, that can also like help you when it comes to like the emotions of like missing home and whatnot.
Yeah, completely agree. Because I'm actually from Jamaica myself, and there's actually a strong Jamaican community, so I can agree with everything you're saying. But Mr. Marcus Flores, do you have any more advice that you could add? Being someone that's came up through the workforce.
I think Bryan covered a lot of it. Also looking for groups, like not just Facebook groups or online groups, but there are organizations in the state that can help. There's the Hispanic professionals of North Carolina, as well as El Pueblo and Diamante here in the Triangle area that can help with that. And they also have some festivals throughout the year and gatherings. Just finding that sense of place and community is what is helpful. It takes a while because I'm still looking for that. I've only been here a year, so still looking for that, and it's just trying to build on that and just getting those experiences that other people have done and going forward with that.
I see. And it's been a very informative show, a very, very, very in-depth show on, Hispanic Heritage Month. And we all know the importance of Hispanic Heritage Month. And I want to thank all of you guys for coming and spending your time here. Marcus, Flores, Sergeant Bethea, Ben, Jenny, and Bryan. Thank you guys for sharing your insight and giving input on Hispanic Heritage Month, because it's very important for representation of the community. And I want to thank you to the viewers for sitting and watching through this very informative program. And I want to thank you to Career Services and DEI for supporting this program. And now I think we will be going into the closing, and hopefully that will play. Okay. So yeah, thank you everyone. I think you can all wave the audience goodbye. It's been a very informative show.